All right, we got a special guest here tonight, Kevin Tame. Uh,
Hello.
he is also the Hacktivist on YouTube and has a large quantity of games and commentary that he does. And I asked him to come on here to not only get to learn about him more and let him tell his Netrunner story, but also let get him to look at some of my games and tell me how terrible I'm doing on them.
I mean, it's not necessarily terrible. It's just an experience,
Yeah,
right? It's
no,
not
for
like
sure.
an experience. I mean, experience makes a big difference.
It does. I receive it. Uh, and so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kevin and just let him tell his Netrunner story, and then we'll come back with some questions here.
Okay, so about me. So I originally bought the core set pretty early when the game came out, and it sat on my shelf. I had a gaming group, and we would play regularly. And Netrunner is never an opportunity to play because two, three, or four people would show up for our game nights. And one time, only one person showed up, and this was I think in 2015, maybe. And I said, hey, I got this game Netrunner. We should check this out. And we played it, and instantly we were like, holy crap, this game is awesome. And that same friend had, like a few weeks later, had to have like neck surgery, and so he wasn't working. And I was like, okay, let me see if I could take like a long lunch break. I'd drive over to his house. We'd play some games in Netrunner, and we just could not stop playing. And yeah, I instantly got addicted, and so I played with him for quite a bit with the core set, and then I started picking up cards. And then what ended up happening is I was like really desperate to just keep playing Netrunner. He was not able to keep playing with me as much. And so I was searching for gaming groups all around the area. I'm in the Maryland area. So I started going to different game nights and just finding people who were playing Netrunner. I'd go to the stores and I'd be like, hey, does anyone play Netrunner here? And they were like, yeah, we have a local group who plays on these nights. And so I just started playing with those groups of people and, getting better over time. And then the real game changer for me was when gentechie.net came about. And because initially it was on Octagon, and I really struggled to play on the Octagon platform. But then when it was on Gentechie, I was able to really start improving my game because I'd get a lot of practice in. But my first kind of experience into competitive Netrunner was at a store championship in Glen Burnie, Maryland, games and stuff. And I remember I think I brought Noise to that. I can't remember exactly who I brought, but I played, one of my first matches was against Brandon Hawk, who the previous year was top 16 at Worlds. I think he might have been top of Swiss after the first round. So he puts down his like play mat, and I was super intimidated. I don't even think I had a play mat at the time. So I was super intimidated. I did my best, and he ended up just wrecking me. But what was really sweet about it is I, made a friend through that. He's still one of my friends, and I was able to, learn and just started playing with, really strong players, and that made me a much better player. Um, it's interesting. My first experience at Worlds was in 2017. I went to the 2017 Worlds, and I did absolutely horrible. I was actually, I think, a good Netrunner player at the time, but I did so bad. And there was a number of reasons, I think, factors of why I played bad. There's another thing about tournament play. There's sometimes just luck, and then you sometimes get into a slump, and then you start to tilt, and you just get worse and worse and worse. But I found myself at like maybe, I think I ended up in like not far from the bottom, like pretty much dead, almost dead last, not quite dead last, but pretty close to dead last. And it was super frustrating. The next year, which was Magnum Opus, the final year in 2018, I had spent a lot of time. That's when I started my channel. I'd had this really crappy year, and I was like, what can I do to be a better Netrunner player? And I thought of all these ways, and this is when I wrote this article, was how can I be better and what are the factors that I can do? So some of them I thought of, I need to practice more. I need to get a coach. I need to really understand like where my weaknesses are. And yeah, so I started my channel as a kind of a way to document my journey of becoming a better player. And it's been helpful too, because people comment and say, hey, I think you should have done this, or like, I think this was a mistake. And it was also a way to just kind of hold me accountable to becoming a better player. I think the other thing too, which has made me a stronger player, is having other stronger players to play against. There's one, like sometimes I just jam games in JNet and it's just with random people who I don't know and I don't know their skill level. But the most beneficial is when I play with really strong players who I know are strong and we can like talk about it. So there's oftentimes in any match a critical move or a critical play that can win or lose you the game. And it's good to stop and say, okay, this is a really important decision point. I need to understand the options. And so with that group of friends or those people that I play with, we'll often stop and we'll be like, okay, here's my decision point. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, if I do this, these are the consequences. If I do this, these are the consequences. And being able to talk about all the lines of play is really valuable. You don't get that opportunity when you're playing competitively against someone because, you know, they want to win as much as you do. But when you're just practicing, it's really great to have someone to talk to about that. The other thing is I just started getting advice from people. I think that was one of the big helpful things too, is I got lots of advice from listening to podcasts, or at the time before FFG canceled Netrunner, there was a lot more content, I think, being generated about Netrunner at the time. So you could listen to all sorts of things. I highly recommend not Dan Dargenio's, he's one of the episodes, but he has an episode on Netrunner Quest, which was by Code Marvelous. It's a podcast, and there is a series of probably 10 episodes on it, maybe 9, that are excellent. They have great insights about becoming a better player and just like strategy, because the whole premise of the podcast was for them to get better. So I would recommend that to anyone. Anyways, that's a little bit of my journey. And I guess the last kind of major tournament was North American or American Continentals. Is that what they call it? American Continentals, and I got 50th something. I don't know, 50 something. I can't remember exactly. The interesting thing was after I did horrible at Worlds 2017, Magnum Opus, I think I got 34th or something like that. 1 point away from being in the top 32. It's just the way the things fall in the end, that happens. But I felt like I did really well. I played excellent games that day, those few days, and it was a really fun time.
Awesome. Well, let's start out right here, because I plan on us getting pretty deep into Netrunner. So what's your top 3 board games, and do you still play, have time for board games when you're Netrunning all the time?
So the thing about Netrunner is it's a lifestyle game, so that obviously consumes a lot of my time. I also have kids, and we like to play video games together and watch TV shows together. COVID's happened, so my gameplay has kind of slowed down. I've been interested in Arkham Horror. I like that one, the LCG. I also like Marvel Champions. Me and my son play that a lot. I play a lot of Pokemon, actually. The card with my son loves Pokemon, and so he's still kind of he's at that point where he can start deck building, but I really love the deck building aspect of it. So I love finding cards and finding synergies for him, and then just like showing him these crazy synergies. Pokemon isn't like my favorite game of all time, but it's a way for me to connect with him. So I do find time to play, but I don't play as many tabletop games as much as I like versus card games. I play a lot more card games: Pokemon, Marvel Champions, Arkham Horror, some RPGs. I have a friend who started a Pathfinder thing, which I'd never done before, so I started doing that, which is fun. D&D, I'd previously done D&D. But my all-time board games, I love Terra Mystica. They had a online version of that. They actually, created like an official version, but they had a previous one where uh, it was very, very basic. And some of my friends and I would play over a month or so time, and we would do our moves, and then they would respond like a day later, and so we'd play it that way.
Yeah.
Um, I really like the Agricola and like Caverna games. They're a toss up to me. Which one's better? I loved Pandemic Legacy. That was such a fun game. I don't know. I like lots of games. There's very few games that I dislike. Cosmic Encounter is maybe one of my least favorite games though. So Cosmic Encounter, and then I don't love Chinatown either. And the reason why I don't like both of those games is they require too much diplomacy, which I am horrible at in gaming. So the ability to like trading inside Chinatown drives me crazy. So
Gotcha.
it's my least favorite. But I like a lot of like open knowledge games where like any of those worker placement games, all knowledge is pretty much 100% out there. So you can Terra Mystica is a classic one where the information is all there.
Right.
Nothing is secret, so you can really look around and be able to make the best optimal move for yourself.
Yep. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten around to playing Caverna, Agricola, or Terra Mystica, even though I know they're classics. I've kind of gotten to a place myself where I like the a theme a little more. I did have a lot more worker placement games and all, but I've kind of got to a little bit different place myself. I am surprised at the number of Netrunner players that tend to lean towards, because I've asked this question to multiple people I've been interviewing, and they all kind of lean towards those heavy strategy games that doesn't have a whole lot of player interaction and has long-term strategy about it, And so
it's basically engine building, right? In any of those games, you're building some sort of engine to get an economic advantage over the other person. And that's very relevant to Netrunner.
Sure.
I mean, it's a real strategy in Netrunner, and I mean, I love themed games too. Don't get me wrong. Like I play a lot of those games, and I think the ones that speak to me the most though are anything that has to do with optimization and optimization is probably a big one. So a lot of those worker placements are about optimizing your moves.
Yeah.
The other thing I really like is I love markets. So Power Grid is another one that I really like, and it's all about managing a market, and like that's a lot of fun to me.
Oh yeah, love that one. That's one of the ones I love. I also love Viticulture a lot, even though it has a little bit more.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
It has a little bit more luck to it than most of them with the card draw, but I enjoy
it's
that
still fun,
race.
Though.
I like the race too.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the first question I want to ask you on Netrunner is, how many games did you have whenever you had that store championship experience? How many games had you played at that point when you went into that experience and lost and got the playmat and all?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
So I didn't lose too much. I ended up getting 5th or 6th on the day, but I did get beat up by some really great players.
Yeah.
Bassoon was another one who was a player there. I can't remember if he won or not, but there was a bunch of great players. So it was people who had all been in top 16 at Worlds before. So it was like I was playing against this stacked crowd. It felt
right.
I have no idea how many games I played till that date. I had already been playing for about a year, and just to put something in context, I recently published a deck on Netrunner DB. It was called Virtual On Cyber Troopers. And that deck I played in our recent store championship. And leading up to that, if I go look at my stats right now, 2 seconds, I'll tell you how many games I have. I have 123 games.
With just that deck?
With just that deck.
Yeah.
So when I imagine at this time, I probably wasn't playing a ton online yet at that point. So I probably only had much less, but I put in a lot of games on a specific deck once I kind of find the deck I want to play at the time. Mm-hmm. I'll go through a phase of like kind of playing like maybe 5 to 10 games just to see if I like it. I usually can tell within 3 games if I'm going to like the deck or not, and then I just trash it. And then the remaining 97 games are fine tuning.
Wow. So how many games would you say? Because I know you said you play every day. How many games would you say you play a day usually?
I don't know. It's at least one. It's at
At least
least
one.
it's like at least one. Um, and I often do. I often play like I'll be working and then I'll do a bunch of stuff I need to get done, and then I can play a game, most games in about 20 minutes, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of just like a little break in between something.
Right.
Um, Oftentimes in those, I'm just playing to play. I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. It's kind of mindless. Um, you know, it's like I do the same thing with another game I play a lot on my phone, Clash Royale. So it's like it's just kind of mindless, and I do it. If I really need to focus though, then I'll play a little bit slower, a little bit more deliberate. I'll also play with specific people, and a lot of times we won't even finish our match. We'll just play the first few turns to optimize time. Just figure out, because if you have a good start, you can pretty much, you'll know. I think by turn 7, oftentimes oh, I'm going to win this game or I'm going to lose this game. So there's no reason to play to turn 14 sometimes. I mean, you can always win. Like there's always a chance of winning, but when you're testing, it's really inefficient to use all that time. It's better to just say, okay, let's just pack up our deck here and shuffle again and start again. That's one of the more efficient things to do with your time.
That makes sense. So
I concede a lot too if I know I'm just like I'm lost at that point.
Right. So what is your favorite faction? Do you have a favorite faction on each side?
Um, you know, I think Anarch is probably my favorite faction. Anarch is probably my favorite faction. I initially played Noise a lot. I liked Gabe too. I liked Kate. I mean, I've played. I think I lean more towards what is the strongest faction at the time, and I play that. That's whoever is on top is what I usually play. And Anarch has been on top a lot, so I played it a lot. I played Anarch at Magnum Opus, and that was great. Continentals, North American. It was North American Continentals. I played Criminal because Criminal seemed like the best deck at the time. So yeah, it's just. But I think Anarch is like, it's kind of this idea of high risk, high reward, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun.
Yeah.
When I play in D&D, those are the type of characters I like to play. Like, I might get demolished here, but it's okay. I'm gonna take the risk.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is the one area in your life where you can take the risk, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's
Just
how
smash
I feel
right into that snare. It's okay.
Yep, I played nothing but Criminal really, and but now that you say that, I'm like I might be an Anarch guy because that is exactly what I like to do is just go all in and see if if I had that big moment or not. It's like who cares if you lose, right? But
it's just riskier as Criminal because you have less opportunities to. A lot of the top Anarch decks have ways to deal with getting smashed in the face by nasty ice. Like I've had worse, and their breakers are okay to fall into the bin because you can bring it back easily.
Right.
Whereas in Criminal, sometimes you get hit in the face and you're like, crap, I just lost that breaker that I really need.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what would you say? And we're gonna get into some other stuff here. What would you say are your biggest strengths and weaknesses at this point in Netrunner?
So, strengths and weaknesses. I haven't thought of this before. So, weaknesses. I can have a tendency to tilt. That's a real thing where your emotion gets a little stronger and you, especially at tournament play, tilting is a real thing. And that, you start losing and you feel like, oh, I can't recover. So tilting. Another weakness is sometimes I will rush through something when I know I should just stop back and think about it. I also have a tendency to face check really hard into things, and sometimes dire consequences. I don't know if that's a weakness or because it can be a strength. It can be a real strength, like forcing people to res and forcing those reses. Like that can be a really positive thing, but it can sometimes, if you don't have an out or an option or like usually you just need economy. I've found myself sometimes making a run and being like, why did I make that run? That was a dumb run. I didn't even make that run. Those are probably, yeah, sometimes I'm a little impulsive maybe when I'm playing the game. We'll just be like, this is my gut reaction and I'll do it. And I think that's good to have those type of shortcuts in you get better. Like the more time you play, you get used to those shortcuts, but it can also be a negative. So I think my strengths in Netrunner are I'm pretty good at playing to my outs. I'm pretty good at identifying what, like the concept of being the beatdown. Are you familiar with that? Like who's the beatdown? It's a famous like kind of magic concept. The concept is if you have all things being equal, then, or if you have one person, if the game goes really long, will eventually win the game. Like they'll build up so much board state and they'll eventually win. And you're the beatdown if you're not that person. So in Netrunner, the way that kind of plays out is, let's say you're playing you're a runner and you're playing against some really degenerate corporation, right? And they're going to put you in a prison and lock you down somehow. And you're not going to be able to get out of it eventually. Well, you're the beatdown. And so you have to kind of throw out your game plan of how to win and take on a different strategy. Basically, it means by winning quicker, like get a lot of accesses early and steal the agendas as quickly as possible before they build that prison. Or vice versa, if you come up against a runner, like Sunny is a classic runner who you can't beat her in the long game because she has so many resources, so much money, and so much ability to get in, and you just can't win if you let the game go too long. So if you're the runner or if you're the corp, you're the beatdown usually. And what you need to do is you need to change your strategy and say, I need to rush. I need to rush right now because if I don't rush, then Sunny is going to beat me. And so I feel like I do a pretty good job of identifying, like looking at a deck and saying, okay, this is what I'm going to be facing. What is my strategy to win this game? What are my chances of winning this game? And then playing to my outs. Because there's certain decks I know like that I face. So like this recent one that I've been playing a lot, the Hoshiko, which is the Cyber Trooper deck. And I know certain matchups I'm just going to struggle with. So I need to play to my outs. And going into that, that also even determines like what I'm going to mulligan for. So I can look at it and say, okay, I'm the beatdown. I'm going to lose this like probably 4 out of 5 times I'm going to lose. But can I be the 20% where I win right now? And what would the game look like? So you try and put yourself in that situation.
Well, I just learned something new about beatdown. That's a basic principle that I can take away from this right now and start looking for that. So I appreciate that. So in your article here, I have pulled up here, you've basically described the situation where you lost in the store championship, and then you go into how you decided to put in some real work to become a better player. And one area I wanted to kind of ask you about is in your deliberate practice, right? And so, yep. And so my question for this deliberate practice is, can you give me like one of the first things you deliberately practiced? Something that a person on my level could start deliberately practicing today. And give an example of that so I can better understand kind of the concept, maybe.
So I think what was super helpful is I had people who could help me identify my weaknesses and then call me out on those weaknesses. And then in that weakness, you want to try and change whatever that is. So I can think of there's general kind of strategies that are useful. Dan D'Argenio, he speaks about this in the Netrunner quest, which I brought up earlier. He talks about how what you want to be doing is he talks a lot about tempo, right? And one of the best things you can do in the game is draw early. And so sometimes that's an uncomfortable practice, right? You want to install that thing because you might need it later. But he has this firm belief of draw up, and if you don't need the card right now, just pitch it, just get rid of it. It's not useful to you. Mm-hmm. Players we as humans have a tendency to say, oh, I really want this card, it might help me later on in the game. And he says that's a bad idea. What you want to be doing is you want to be drawing up, finding the things that you need for the situation now, and then pitching those things you don't need. And the example he uses is medium. So an example today would be something like Stargate. Stargate is a card that's super useful, but sometimes it's more of a mid to late game. And if you have it early, you're oh, I'm holding onto this card. I don't know if I'm going to use it, or am I ever going to be able to use it? And so it's just wasting your hand space. So he would say, draw up and just pitch that card. You don't need it right now. And so, but that's a tough thing for us to do. So I think taking certain strategies like that and just practicing that specific thing. A good one to practice is on your very first click, draw. That is one of the best things you can do in Netrunner. It's almost usually the best decision to make early on for most of the game, actually, because what it's doing is it's giving you more information. And what's interesting when you look at other card games, draw is super limited. If you ever played the Game of Thrones LCG, or if you ever play Magic, or if you ever play any of these other card games, or Pokemon, for example, you get one card draw at the beginning of your turn, and that's it.
Yep.
Whereas in Netrunner, the beauty of it is you can go draw to get the thing you need. It's one of the best actions you can take in the game. The other best action you can take in the game is clicking for a credit. Mm-hmm. It's just click for a credit. You never, you might need that. Sometimes if I have 6 cards in my hand and I could install one, but it might be a late get Stargate. I could install it. The better play is to just click for a credit and ditch the Stargate. It feels bad, but it's the better play. And so I think when you do deliberate practice is identifying some sort of thing like that and just doing that thing over and over and practicing that thing.
Right.
It could be, you might have an issue with running early, and I've seen newer players, they want to get all their breakers out and they want to be completely ready to run. And that you can end up losing the game because you took too long to set up and you didn't force the corp to res any money. So they have all this money now because they were able to just set up, and you fall way behind. And so I think that's the best way to apply the principle of deliberate practice is identify a place that you want to work on, usually consulting with someone who maybe is better than you. That's why I use a coach. And then focusing on that thing. They'll help you get into that kind of learning zone and improve. Is that helpful?
It is. So the first step really is what you're saying is you get the coach to when you have someone you play with and they identify something, you take that and then you go and start saying, I'm going to deliberately focus on that when I'm playing until it becomes second nature, basically, and I don't have to focus on it, and then I go focus on something else.
I don't know. Go to the first bullet. What did I say? Scroll down here for me.
Scroll down.
Record your games. Okay, yeah. That's true. So what I'm talking about here, that I was just describing the concept of deliberate practice, and the concept is pretty simple. I'll just go scroll up here so I can look at it. So the concept is basically this, is we're in 3 zones. We're in the comfort zone, the learning zone, or the panic zone. And the way I describe it is the comfort zone for me with Netrunner is just getting on at lunchtime and just playing a game and not really thinking about what I'm doing. That's the comfort zone. I'm just playing a deck I really know. I'm playing the Cyber Trooper game, and excuse me, and I just play the cards because I have played it so much. That's comfort zone. I'm not getting any better, to be honest. Let's go to the other end. The panic zone would be, I use the example of a plane, right? Someone throws me in a plane and they throw you up there. Like, there's no way I'm actually going to learn how to land this plane right now. In Netrunner, the example could be someone throws you a deck, you don't even know what any of the cards are, and you're in like a high stakes tournament, right? Mm-hmm. That would be, you're going to bumble through that. You're not. There's not really an opportunity for learning. Mm-hmm. So if you're in comfort, you're not learning. If you're in panic, you're not learning. So you got to find this middle ground, which is, it's a little uncomfortable because you're like not good at it, but it's not so comfortable where you're not getting any better. And that is the concept of deliberate practice, is doing the things that are a little uncomfortable, that they're just out of reach, if you will, mm-hmm. so that you get better.
Yeah. Yep. That's good stuff. So switching subject here, are you playing in Worlds coming up?
I'm planning on it. Me and my wife were talking about it, and she was like, "So what are all the details? Tell me about it." So I am planning on it. Yeah. I haven't bought. I don't know if tickets have gone on sale. I was planning on going this year to the live Worlds tournament, which was going to be in Toronto. I was planning on doing that anyways. So being it virtual, a lot easier, saves on cost, and
yeah.
I'm going to miss the live part of it because it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to hang out with people, meet people. Yeah, my first World experience was awesome, and I had been talking to some of these people who I'd never seen before their face in my life, and they had their Netrunner handle, and I think it was Neuropanzer. He came up to me and was like, "Hey Kevin, how's it going?" And I was like, "Do I know you?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's Neuropanzer." I'm like, "Oh, hey." So it was like this surreal moment. There's a lot of that at the in-person World stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I'm a little sad about that, but the online thing is still pretty good.
Right. I mean, there's pros and cons, right?
I don't have to travel.
Yeah, right. That's what I mean. So it's just there are some pluses and minuses for sure. But
yeah, my wife doesn't love it. I mean, I have a bunch of little kids, and so it's like she doesn't love that part of it. But it's
right.
Yep. Yeah.
So and the only reason I'm about to ask you this question is because I'm a noob, and I just really wanted to know the mind of people who actually know what they're doing in this game. Like, what do you think of the meta over the past several months? What do you think about the change in how Continental meta was, and then what do you think about the changes in the ban list coming up for Worlds here? What do you think about all that? I'm just interested in getting your opinion on it. Not trying to get you in trouble.
So the ban list. So the thing that's the most disappointing thing for me with the ban list is that it doesn't address ASA decks. ASA decks are by and large, I think, the powerhouse. And what makes them really strong is that they have a few cards that just put them over the edge. And one of them is Violet Level Clearance, which is an incredible draw card and econ card. They also have access to Rashida, obviously, because everyone does. And they also have fully operational. And what those cards, what they allow you to do is draw and get money really fast. And what exacerbates the problem is what I think is actually the bigger problem is Cybernetics Court. So I don't know how long you've been playing. CI was not a deck when you were playing Netrunner, correct?
I haven't really ever played Standard before. I'm playing all these other formats, trying to learn about the original game. So I have probably experienced the cards in the modded tournament that we do, but I haven't seen it in full effect.
CI is a deck that was really popular at different times, and what it allowed you to do is your hand size was however many credits you had. So if you had 20 credits, you could hold 20 cards.
I remember that.
And so that's now a banned card, or it's no longer in Standard. And what I find is when those kind of corporations live inside the game, what happens is runners can or corpse can hold a lot of agendas in hand and kind of hide them,
Mm-hmm.
right? The other thing they can do is they can hold combo pieces. One of the best things about Netrunner, if you take out hand size, is that a corporation can only hold 5 cards, and when they're only holding 5 cards, they have to make the decision: do I want to hold this combo piece, or do I want to pitch this agenda, or do I want to keep this econ card? When you give the corp the ability to hold 20 cards, they don't have to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And so they get to hold it all. And so that's the problem we have with Ace of decks today, is they can hold onto all their combo pieces, so they can do all sorts of combos. So there's an Ace of boom, like Hardy News boom deck. There's an Ace dedication ceremony, reconstruction contract, fast, like quick, deck or whatever. There is the traditional Lakshmi style. And so the problem when you go and face Asa right now is that they're all really strong decks, but two, you don't know what you're facing, because there's such a breadth of different types of Asa builds. And with there being such a breadth of Asa builds, like if you are playing against one style, you have to run early and aggressively, and you have to take care of their board. And they look the same when you start playing them, right? When you're playing against them, because they have the same type of assets. But if they're on a kill plan, you kind of got to hold back and like not run super early, because they're going to Hardy News and boom you. And so I think that's kind of a problem in the game. I think Worlds is going to be a lot of Asa, is what I'm really saying.
Yeah.
And what they basically did is the top 2 decks were GameNet and Asa, and they killed GameNet with SSL and Gold Farmer. They might not have killed it. I'm going to test it out. And now Asa is going to be the primary thing. So the theory is that runners are going to have to tech to beat these Asa decks. I think my personal opinion is Cybernetics Court, if it had been banned, it would have devastated a lot of Asa decks, and then they would have had to gone to maybe a little bit more traditional, build a server and score out.
That card gives them what, a +4 hand size or something like that?
+4 hand size, and so it's that whole idea of you now get to hold a bunch of cards.
Yeah.
I'm not saying VLC is also, like, bi-level clearance is also a problem, so that's something that could potentially get banned. But I think the bigger culprit, in my opinion, and I know people disagree with me on this, is giving people the ability to hold all their combo pieces. When you do that, runners can do crazy, or corporations can do crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's why CI had these old combo decks where it was called 7-point CI. They could score 7 points in one turn. They were nuts.
Yeah. So in your so whenever FFG canceled their support, did you just stay fast and stay the course and everything? And how do you?
I cried a little tear, man. I remember when they released it. I cried a little tear, and I mean, that's why Magnum Opus was such a fun event, because it was kind of the pinnacle of Netrunner. We knew it was getting canceled. We also knew at that time Nisei was starting up, and because as soon as it was announced, I think it might have been the day of, in the Slack, the StimHack Slack channel or whatever, mm-hmm. someone created a future channel, which was like, what's the future of Netrunner? And conversations started coming out, and I remember we were spitballing all these ideas, and it ended up coming up to Nisei as the name. And then I started like sharing logos with Nisei, and then they did a logo competition, and mine was the one that actually won. Wow. So yeah, I was the designer for that. And I don't know if you knew this, I am still the graphic designer for all the cards and all that stuff for
really?
Nisei. Yeah, so if you look at all of the templates, me and Izzy and Pat put together all of the cards for Netrunner.
That's amazing.
For Nisei stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they was just talking about that on the PAX stream the other day, and you're one of the guys. This is why good bits of information to find out about here.
So like that, my role right now, I took a little break for about a month or two, because I was maybe 3, because I was busy with work stuff. But my role is graphic design. So like mm-hmm. I lead the graphic design team.
It looks awesome,
I also did some. What?
It looks awesome. Appreciate
I did
you.
some of the art in the last one. I think I maybe did 3 or 4 cards. Like Bravado is my card, and
Oh,
what else is? Can't even remember. Oh, Penrose.
hmm.
That one's mine, and After Image. So yeah, here and there.
Yep. That's pretty cool stuff. Well, I'm not going to ask you how you feel about Nisi then because you're kind of part of them. So I assume, I mean, I assume you think
You can
they're,
ask me. I'll tell you my opinions.
yeah, go ahead.
What are my thoughts?
Yeah, Nisi.
So
Yeah.
so I think Nisei is it has being internal as well. Like I see some of the pain points.
Hmm.
It's a volunteer organization, and it's a super hard thing to produce cards and do organized play. Like it is crazy hard. When we did our first release, me and Pat, who was the art director at the time, um, him and I were staying up. He was on the West Coast, but I was staying up till 2, 3 in the morning trying to get these card templates all done. And it was like, it felt like a second job, right? It was tiring and it was a lot of work. But I'm a firm believer in you have to have a group of people who are the arbiters of the community, if you will. Like they have to be to say, hey, this is what standard is. This is what eternal is. This is what the format is. This is the tournaments that we're playing. This is the organized play. You have to have a single group doing that. I think if you have factions, we don't have enough people that play Netrunner for that to be successful. You can't have one group designing cards and then another group designing cards. So, hey, if you want to play in the Nisei tournaments, you have to play these cards. And if you want to play in the whatever tournament, you have to play these cards.
Right.
I think that's real problematic. So one of the best things about Nisei is that they are the unifying body to bring us all together.
Mm-hmm.
If you are familiar with Game of Thrones second edition, right now they're having massive problems because their game got canceled as well. They are really struggling to organize because of a lot of infighting and a lot of they like some groups like, oh, I'm going to go over and create cards over here, and another group's like, we don't like this group, and so we're going to go do this thing. And like if you divide the community, then you'll never be successful. And so what Nisei has done has brought the community together, and that's why we've been able to be around for 2 years.
Yep.
2 more years after the game was canceled.
Absolutely. I appreciate all y'all do. I mean, like you said, voluntary. I mean, y'all got lives, families, jobs, and y'all take the time out to keep this going for everybody. I just really appreciate it. And
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's not only just like the Nisei people who are on the Nisei team, and it's also the play testers. I mean,
mm-hmm.
I'm a play tester, and it's a lot of work to play test.
Yeah.
So that's a big group of people who volunteer to take the time to test out cards and make sure that things are right. And the crazy thing is they don't all agree, right? Like this ban list, not everyone agreed on it.
Yeah.
Some people thought it was like, some testers were like, no, I don't agree with this. Some did agree with it. And so that's the beauty of it, is we have a bunch of smart people trying to solve this problem. And but I don't think anyone is like, oh, I don't agree with what Nisei did, I'm going to pack my bags and go somewhere else. So that's the best thing about it.
For sure. No, really good stuff, and appreciate the insight. And I didn't even know you were with Nisei, so I'm gaining all kinds of good scoops, as they like to call it in the community. No, but no, I'm joking.
They love scoops, yeah.
But so, well, I'll let you have the last word. If there's anything you want to share with anybody out there, go ahead, and then we'll call it a day and go do these games here.
Yeah, I don't have anything. Just hit me up if you guys want to talk about Netrunner. I mean, I love talking about Netrunner. I think about it way more than I should. So that's the problem. I think about it way too much. Too. Yeah, I mean, I'll sometimes just sit in bed looking at old cards, being like, hey, I wonder if I could do this with this card. And yeah, I love talking Netrunner. I love talking about strategy in Netrunner. Yeah, I plan on writing a few more things here. I want to create a little bit more robust articles, like a series of articles that like focus on specific strategies. And so I'm looking at, I started putting together my thoughts here of what would be helpful for new players and to kind of get better at Netrunner. So look forward to that coming down the pipe, guys. So
Yeah,
that's my final thought.
Awesome. I'm interested. All right. Well, we're gonna cut right here. Thanks again for taking the time out and doing this with me, and appreciate all the good info that you provided in several areas. So we'll see you in a minute.